So we have Italian banks that are implementing blockchain. We have the Singapore Shipping Association that's deploying blockchain for ship registration. Meanwhile, the SEC, the CFTC, and Fintech are tripping over themselves to issue a joint statement, which is nothing but more talking points, no action, no regulatory clarity. What's that all about? We're going to take a look today. Hey, this is Jeff with a How to Review. Join me on our next video right here on the chain. All right, so let's check this out. So again, we want to take a look at positive action versus just blowing hot air. I don't know what's up with the SEC, the CFTC, and FinTech just issuing big statements on AML, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. First, what I want to do is go into talking about Singapore. See, Singapore is interesting. They're actually in the process of tying up a solution to actually deploy blockchain for ship registration on a self-executing smart contract. Their claim is that it's going to reduce time, it's going to reduce cost, and also reduce the occurrence of errors that occurs during the registration process. Now, one of their statements, and if you check out this article from Cointelegraph, which we're going to do in a second, if the system proves successful in Singapore, the ICC is actually going to put in a bid for full global adoption. So let's go and actually check out this article. And then we're going to move into talking a little bit about Italian banks as well. So let me cue this up. Let me see here. We've got video screen. Let's transition over to our shared screen. Here we go. All right, cool. So check this out. Singapore Shipping Association to deploy blockchain for ship registration, just as I was saying. So the Singapore Shipping Association, which is SSA, the International Chamber of Commerce, which is the ICC, and blockchain firm Perlin, which we'll take a look at here in 1 second, are jointly working on an E Registry for the ship registration and renewal process. So let's take a look over here. So Perlin, what is Perlin? Who is Perlin? Their claim, leaderless, the way blockchain should be, lightning fast transactions combined with quick and easy onboarding. All that's important. This is who the ICC and the SSA tied up with. Introducing Perlin's Wavelet, the ledger for a connected tomorrow today. So we have WASM smart contracts, write in any language for quick and easy smart contracts. We have the Wavelet ledger, a blazing fast decentralized ledger, write once, run anywhere. So really interesting. I'm not going to, the purpose of today's video isn't to get into Perlin. Obviously, we're learning a little bit about it. 40,000 companies, 150 countries, 120 institutional investors, 45 million members, access to 4 million nodes, and 377 PFLOPs. PFLOPs is a measurement of data. I have no idea what a PFLOP is. I'm sure somebody that's watching does. But let's look here. Smart INCOs by Perlin. Perlin is working closely with ICC, which we just talked about, to pioneer the development of Incoterms for self-executing smart contracts and digital transactions. The expansion of the Incoterms to cover the digitization of cross-border transactions is critical to support the future of all international trade across every industry. This is part of the global re-release of the Incoterms 2020, which includes 60 launch events. And okay, so we can learn about that later. The key is that they're launching a methodology of registering ships on blockchain this is really, really important because we're starting to see more and more real world adoption and real world adaption, real world utility. So here we have the International E Registry of Ships, which is IERS system, is based on Perlin's Wavelet, an open ledger of writing decentralized WebAssembly application. Financial Daily Business Times reported on the 14th of October, which is today. The blockchain e-register will run on self-executing smart contracts, purportedly reducing time, cost, occurrence of error in the registration process. So really, this is a great article. Cointelegraph really brought it with this one. So here we have, look at this. Now we do know, and I've talked about it before, that shipping is one of those, and especially when if you look at the different aspects or the different methods of implementing blockchain, and shipping is one of the key industries or key parts of industry that you really need to track data. You need to reduce costs. You have to make sure that every little thing lines up perfectly. If there's one thing that's off, everything falls apart. And so it's so key. And there's obviously others that are also joining into a blockchain tracking mechanism. Here we have maritime shipping firms Ocean Network Express and Hapag Lloyd join the tracking platform TradeLens. We can talk about that one later. The platform aims to cut paperwork, associated costs, time and logistics, which accounted for $4 trillion at the time, with over 80% of goods carried by the ocean shipping sector, that's amazing. If you can decrease that cost, if you can decrease the time, if you can decrease human error, and make sure that everything is readily and immediately accessible, there's so much more that ties up in that shipping transaction, especially when it has to do with the payment process, letters of credit. There's all these other things that go along with that transaction. The shipping is only one component. So that's interesting. Now here we have the SEC. They're just focused on, we're going to issue some more statements on what AML is, and we want to make sure everyone's AML compliant. Whereas we've got other countries, and we have banks in other countries that are starting to seriously test blockchain. So while we have our entities here in the United States sitting on their hands and issuing these statements that we already know about, we've got other very important things that are going down on a regular basis. Let's get rid of that. So this, again, also on Cointelegraph. Check this out. The Italian Banking Association, ABI, successfully processed the reconciliation data of an entire year of local banking activity on a blockchain platform. Bam, look at this. This is real world utility happening right now. And not only that, they issued a great statement. Check out this press release. If you read Italian, I'm sure you'll be all over it. I don't read Italian. It's not that similar to Spanish. So I can pick some things out in here, but no, we're not going to read it. So if you can read it, awesome. However, if we go back to February, there was some announcements there. This was in Fintech Futures, February 13th of this past year. The Spunta project, a blockchain-based application for interbank reconciliations, has passed several tests and is moving onto the pre-production phase as of today, which was February 13th. 18 banks are actively involved in the testing, selection, and implementation of the new distributed technology. Now, obviously, we see things going on with RippleNet, with cross-border payment, but there's so much that needs to happen internally between local banks, communication between local banks. These banks need to start gaining and getting into more future technology that's going to speed up transaction, going to reduce costs, going to make sure that their data is accurate, making sure that everything's transparent. All of the key things that we know and have come to understand that blockchain is going to deliver. But what's interesting is that we look here, and so who is the ABI partnering with? They're partnering with NTT Data, SIA, which also has the SIA coin. I believe it's the same organization. I'll make that assumption that this SIA, which is the because they are reaching out to global enterprise solutions. Then we also see R3 Corda. So R3's Corda platform aims to implement the blockchain and interbank process. Now, the one thing that we do know about R3 Corda is that it also has direct access to XRP. Just saying. So this was reported back in February. I think that's really interesting. And so now this article there and the big press release was October 12th. This article just came out today. And so here we look at this. Platform viability has been demonstrated. That's a key statement. You got to love when you see statements like that, that the platform, what they're building is viable. So here we have now ABI reveals that the test has seen 200 million data entries being processed by the blockchain banking reconciliation, effectively simulating 1 year of Italian banking activity. Now, if we look at countries like Italy, Greece, and others where there has been identifiable levels of corruption in government and in the financial sector, it's so key that when you are able to implement a system like this for reconciliation, you're also going to minimize and probably get rid of a large percentage of that kind of corruption. Obviously, other things can take place, but when ledgers need to mesh, ledgers are going to mesh because through the blockchain, you can't really corrupt it like you can when it's manually done. So here we have the successful test allegedly demonstrates the sustainability of the verification procedure and the platform itself. So this is great. So here we have, let's see, 18 banks comprising of 78% of the country's banking workforce took place. 78% of the country's banking workforce. Look at that. That is amazing. That's really significant. And again, all this is happening. You got some amazing things taking place. And then bam, what's happening over here? We have leaders of the CFTC, FinCEN, and SEC issue a joint statement on activities involving digital assets. So you're like, oh my God, this is going to be something important. They're going to give some really key guidance. Sorry about that. All right. October 11th, 3 days ago, the leaders of the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission today issued the following joint statement to remind persons engaged in activities involving digital assets of their anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism obligations under the Bank Secrecy Act. So this is their statement. The one time they get together, and this is what they put out. I mean, yes, it's important. It's critical. This is the foundation. But come on. The foundation has already been there. We know about AML. We know about KYC. You don't have to issue a statement to remind people that are engaged in activities involving digital assets of their obligation. It's a statement to remind people. This is the most ludicrous release of a statement and the most ludicrous waste of time and taxpayer dollars. It's unbelievable. I mean, this is just mind-numbing. Look at this. Bam, we got countries in Singapore. They're talking about global standards. Look at this. If the system proves to be successful in Singapore, the ICC will bid for global adoption of the IERS standards in the industry. So here we're looking at, yes, it's private. It's private, enterprise. However, we're talking about the Singapore Shipping Association. Then, bam, we have Italian banks. 78% of the country's banking workforce took part in this demonstration of platform viability being demonstrated, and then the letdown. Right now when we need actual government regulatory clarity, we need people looking at the Token Taxonomy Act. We need our representatives to take this seriously. And instead, what are they doing? They're issuing a statement to remind people. And this goes to the exchanges. And there's this whole, you can go in and read as much as you want to read about this, but I don't know. That's just, it's just a little bit too much. It's just too much. I mean, to me, if they're going to spend that time, I wanted a little bit of regulatory clarity. That's obviously not what we got, so, what can you do? What can you do? Anyhow, this has been great. I enjoyed today's conversation. Thanks for joining me on today's video. Remember, go check out onthechain.io. You can go see all the other contributors of On the Chain. You can look at all the other shows. You can also see, if you scroll to the bottom of the website, type in your email, and we'll start rolling out updates and information, some key updates of what's taking place. We have a key interview that we're doing this week. We have some other key people that we're talking to this week. There's a lot going on with On the Chain. You'll also see a coming soon section regarding podcasts. So if you like listening instead of watching, podcasts are for you. With that, that's it. Again, I enjoyed today's video. Before I go, though, make sure leave a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, subscribe to On the Chain, and check out On the Chain Live, because that's where all of our live streaming is taking place, and that's also where all of our premier longer-winded videos will be. Until I see you next time, this is Jeff with the HODL Review. See ya.